Mother 3 is a Japan-only game. If you were to only know one thing about this game before having clicked on this video, it was probably that fact. But instead of creating yet another video for the internet shouting into the abyss on how much people want an official Mother 3 English release, I think it'd be far more interesting to delve into the history of the Mother 3 fan translation. The fan translation was a project to make Mother 3 accessible for English speakers by translating the original Japanese text of the game all into English. But how did it all come to be, and what is the legacy of this project now? All this and more in today's video. I think a little background is needed before I delve into the meat of this video, so let me explain what a fan translation means. Fan translating is when a piece of media, say a cartoon, song, video game, etc., that is unavailable in one language, is taken by a fan and translated into a different language, without the endorsement of monetary backing of the original IP holder. Most of the time, fan translations are made when an official translation isn't available, but can also oftentimes be made when an official translation is deemed to be too different from the original text's intent. It is essentially the duty of the translator to keep the original intent of the author's writing. Typically, the most common form of fan translating is taking Japanese media and translating it into English, but seeing as the internet isn't made up of 100% English speakers, other language translations are also very common, such as translating stuff into Spanish, French, Korean, and more. With TV shows or comics, fan translating can be relatively simple, as all you usually need is the skill to edit images or add subtitles. But when it comes to video games, there of course is an added layer of having to hack a game to make the text in a different language be displayed with no issues. While many video games can still largely be enjoyed without knowing Japanese, it's always nice to have context as to what's being said in the game, and in particular with role-playing games, being able to understand character dialogue and menus is pretty much essential, meaning fan translation of that genre are all the more lauded. Now that you know what fan translating is, I don't think I have to give any introduction as to what Mother 3 is, but I'll do it anyway. Mother 3 is the third game in the Mother series, officially known as the Earthbound series in the West. The game went through quite possibly some of the worst development hell seen by any video game, and had to go through several redesigns due to changing hardware the project was being developed for, culminating in an April 2006 release in Japan. Earthbound, known as Mother 2 in Japan, had seen a North American release, and seeing as during the game's N64 days, Mother 3 was planned to have an official localization under the name Earthbound 64 or Earthbound 3, people reasonably assumed that this would mean the GBA version that had finally actually released would also see an English translation. And no, it obviously did not. And this is where I can now get into the Mother 3 fan translation. The story of trial and error, of hope and patience, and it's one I think deserves a chronicling like this because it's pretty damn interesting. Anyways. So, Mother 3 releases in Japan, and the forum for the Earthbound fan site, starmen.net, has a huge interest in discussing the game, of course, but the question inevitably arises, will there be an American release? Or even a European one? Will Nintendo translate this game into English? Fans waited for some time, hoping against hope to see this text-heavy RPG maybe get the chance to be localized, despite the Game Boy Advance now being on its way out as the months went on, with no announcements in sight. And by November 8th, 2006, something would happen. Reedman, one of the original Starmen.net alumni, made a blog post that would change everything for English-speaking Mother fans. A lot was said in this post, detailing the past 10 plus years of trying to get Nintendo of America to acknowledge the Earthbound series, all for it to be in vain, and the final nail in the coffin towards hope of seeing that coveted official Mother 3 translation. And so, an announcement was made. Clyde Tomato Mandolin, a professional translator and hardcore Mother fan, would be translating the game, with a team who would join to ROM hack the game and polish it to make it the best fan translation they could all make. Overwhelming positivity from fellow English Mother fans followed this news. Mother 3 may not have been getting official acknowledgement from Nintendo of America, but this was the next best thing. Fears arose, however, that Nintendo of America might want to take down this fan translation, but there was a long road still ahead. No one at this point even knew quite how long it'd take to translate this game. Shortly after the initial reveal announcement, a few people who had previously begun working on translating Mother 3 separately joined the team to help out with the project. Not long after that, a new site was formed to host updates about the translation. There was a lot of work moving forward, and this is where Earthbound fans could see how progress was going. Now, just to clarify, I'm not going to recount every single blog post word for word. I just want to give a timeline of how progress was made and any other interesting events and tidbits that occurred during. Bit by bit, the game was worked on, and a lot of interesting stuff happened. What work was done early on was pretty quiet at first, understandably. The couple of blog posts made showed some early looks at how the game was now looking, as well as some technical info. By July 29, 2007, a user a part of the project named Jeffman had managed to dump all of the text from the game's files, to which it was discovered all of the game's text was not ordered conveniently, like by chapter or chronologically. It was ordered by all of the maps in the game, something that would make work more difficult, but certainly not a deterrent. A lot of tough hacking work was still yet to come. It wasn't until a blog post on August 10, 2007 that things would really get interesting. It was revealed that Mother Series content would indeed be in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the upcoming entry in the Smash Bros. Series. This was a spanner in the works. With this knowledge, a lingering fear that Super Smash Bros. Brawl would release and spoil Mother 3's plot for so many people was not just a possibility, but more likely a probability. And what do you know, they were right. But anyways, this was something that the fan translation team wanted to avoid, of course, and with that scheduled release date of December 3rd for Smash looming in the horizon, the team wanted the fan translation to be done sometime before then, preferably with a few weeks to play Mother 3 before Brawl hit store shelves, therefore sometime during November 2007. They wanted this, but couldn't make it a promise. Man, can you imagine the sigh of relief these guys must have had when it was announced Brawl would be delayed to the first quarter of 2008? Hindsight is of course 2020, and yeah, the team didn't meet this November 2007 goal and couldn't even get the patch done by early 2008 either. But that's okay, this was no rush job. The team continued to chip away at the project, and by the 18th of August 2007, the first draft script was reportedly 92 to 93% complete. 3 days later, it was shown that the English was now working in the game, a huge milestone, and plenty of screenshots of this were shared. In the comments section to this update, Mado also disclosed that the Welcome to Mother 3 world text at the beginning of the game would be changed to Welcome to the World of Mother 3, as well as confirming some name changes would be done too. On August 23rd, Mado revealed a tidbit that this project had only really begun work in July 2007. That's pretty interesting. As the days and weeks progressed, more and more was shown off. Many technical glitches would slow progress down, such as getting the game to not freeze at scrolling text. In September, Mado let it be known that Mother 3 had dropped down to only $14.90 on PlayAsia, and encouraged everyone to legally purchase a copy of the game, as it might even quell any moral issues someone would potentially have about playing the fan translation. Halfway through the month, he mentioned that in about only 6 weeks' time, 5,000 people had signed up for email notifications for the blog. The people were getting real excited. By the end of the month, with Super Smash Bros. Brawl's expected release date looking closer, the team decided to release what they dubbed a mini patch that only translated the game's menus, as it was clear the full translation wouldn't be ready by November. October 1st comes and Lucas was finally announced for Smash Brawl. On the 8th, Mado revealed that the menu translation patch had been downloaded over 1,000 times already. People really wanted to experience this game. On the 10th, a post was made advertising that a red Ultimate Chimera t-shirt would be given away in a contest that Starman.net would be holding. Mado also pointed out that the text on the shirt, which was an official product available from the King of Games, was translated into English, making it the only text from Mother 3 officially translated and licensed by Nintendo. By October 28th, the chapter titles were now fully translated and displayed correctly in-game. November 8th came along with a big new blog post, the 1-year anniversary since the announcement of the fan translation. Mado reiterated while progress was going good, there was still a ways to go, showing off some of the glitched screenshots of unfixed bugs, and also made a well-deserved jab at Mother 3's code really being particularly difficult to work with. I didn't really mention this earlier, but a huge roadblock was that with the Japanese text in the original game, it was 16-bit, and just simply replacing it with English text didn't look right. Everything looked all spaced out, among other issues. The hackers on the team had to get the game to display the text in an 8-bit format just to fix this. These folks were dedicated, man, and have the notes to show their hard work. Back on track, by the 12th, name tags were now beginning to be displayed in English, albeit still in an incomplete state. On December 7th, Mado posted a huge list of hacking stuff that still needed fixing. He pointed out that working on a fix sometimes could lead to other parts of the game breaking, and really helped paint the picture of the struggles the team were going through just to get this patch working. they continued to press on, no matter what. On the 27th, that list of tons of hacking stuff needed to be done was updated, with a good amount on that list either having been completed or in progress. The new year came, and on the 4th of January 2008, Mado stated it would be really nice if the patch could be done by the end of the year. Hold on to that hope, team. On the 19th, an updated hacking to-do list was posted, with a bunch still left for all aspects of the game. A couple of particularly interesting notes listed was to add an intro screen / disclaimer at the beginning of the game, and some extra things like getting a silver star if you meet every enemy in the game for your battle memory. On February 5th, it was posted that the team had finally managed to get menu text centered, and damn did it look clean. The next day, Mado posted that the name tags were still being worked on, specifically to fit longer names, as well as sharing this awesome photo of a dog and a cat for some reason. February 11th, another post showing once again how scary this game could look when the text decides to break, as well as showing how the battle system was now looking pretty good. Their hard work was paying off little by little. February 23rd, more reason to get annoyed at Brownie Brown for Mother 3's code. March 14th, and more text testing was being done, such as with your favorite food and favorite thing. Also, they finally finished fixing the name tags. Awesome. On the 19th, Mado posted how they had managed to fix battle text to not sound so convoluted, as the Japanese version of the game would always assume the enemy name was at the beginning of an encounter sentence. With some new code, they had the freedom to rewrite these messages to sound better in English. The next day, some grammar stuff was shown off working in battle too. That stuff's important. Another big thing that happened in March was the North American release of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and with this came for the first time many official localizations of names of characters from Mother 3. In other words, Kumatora's name was the same as it was in Japanese, as was Hinawa's. In an effort to stay consistent with these official names presented in the official English Nintendo product, the decision was made by the fan translation team to keep her name as Hinawa, as it was considered by them otherwise to rename her to Amber, as that would sound more natural in English. On April the 6th, Jeff Mann made a blog post going over technical details behind the player name and how it was done in the original game and the patch. April 20 came and it was Mother 3's birthday. So much progress had been made by the fan translation. Still, there was work to be done, such as the second and third script draft, as well as a finalized one, an estimated 2 more months of major hacking left, and of course, testing the hack for anything else before release. By May 1st, fears were starting to rise amongst the team that they were beginning to run out of free space in the ROM. With some clever file relocating though, any drastic issues were avoided. On May 5th, it was posted that a hard-coded element, the way in which the game displayed text relating to selling items, had been rewritten so the text would sound more natural in English. With this, Mado claimed that not too much major hacking was left, and that light at the end of the tunnel was pretty bright now. The end was in sight. On May 10th, another major hacking hurdle was overcome. All non-sprite menu text, including item names, could now be over 18 letters long, from before only being able to be about 8 or 9 letters long. May 13th was another major hurdle overcome. The "you can't carry any more stuff" text was now properly working. On May 15th, Jeff Mann posted that the health and safety warning screen had been fully translated and implemented into the game, as well as a brand new disclaimer about the fan translation, which I'll discuss in further detail later. On May 16th, Mado posted the main script hacking was currently being worked on, and showed an amusing anecdote entitled "Flint and the Mystery of the Missing Letters." In June, the writing of the second draft was fully underway. On the 1st of the month, it was 36.41% done. 5 days later, on the 6th, it was 42.61%, and by the 8th was at 52.29%. Lucas also made a reference to the wizard. On June 13th, Mado's blog post contained links to a few forum posts, one of which was where he disclosed several creative decisions how some elements would be translated. For example, at this point they had yet to decide whether to keep Porky's name as Porky like in the Japanese version, or to rename him Pokey like in Earthbound, but were leaning towards the former option. On July 9th, Mado announced that thanks to clever organisation and planning, that after the release of the English Mother 3 fan translation, the tools used to create it could be reused by anyone to translate Mother 3 into almost any other language. On the 12th, the second draft was up to 91.03% completion, and Mado said even he who had played the game to death was getting excited. Finally, by July 22nd, The second draft was 100% complete, with the overall percentage of the project up to about 85 to 90%. On the 26th, Mado now had put out that new names for many of the game's chimeras and other enemies were needed, and that the community could help by coming up with witty names that would sound good in English, as some of the direct translations were pretty boring. A few of my personal favourites that made it into the fan translation would be the reconstructed caribou, the squawking boomstick, and the yam monster. As the end drew near, the updates slowed down, but a month later on August 22nd, Mado revealed that all of the English text was now fully polished and implemented, the last thing to do having been the enemy names and descriptions. The next month or so of work was fixing bugs, mainly related to how text was displaying. And then finally, by the 26th of September, it was announced that all the hacking was complete. The monumental task of translating all of Mother 3 into English was done, and was almost ready to be released. The proper testing came next, and an October 1st blog post showed a few minor bugs that were being fixed. Much better. And then on October 14th came the big news. Testing was complete and the fan translation patch would be releasing that week. Mado gave some technical info about how the patch could be played, particularly about flashcards people could use to play the patch should they be interested in playing on real hardware. I can only imagine the elation in the air at this point. It was finally happening. And then, the day before the fan translation was intended to release, Mado received an email. In it, an unnamed person essentially begged him and the rest of the fan translation team to not release the patch. They cited that releasing this would result in an official translation would be discouraged by Nintendo of America if this were to be available unofficially for free. And I don't want to go on a mini tangent or anything here, but I will say I'm so damn glad the team just ignored this, because this email they received really just sounds like some effortless troll trying to stir discourse in the Mother community. It's honestly pretty pathetic, especially in hindsight. Carrying on, October 17th came, and there it was. The Mother 3 fan translation was finally released for everyone. This was it. All the blood, sweat and tears put in by the whole team led up to this, and it was glorious. October 24th came an epilogue blog post where Mado talked about how the first week of the fan translation's release had gone down. In only 2 days after the patch had been released, it had reportedly been downloaded over 70,000 times, and this was only from their link on mother3.fobby.net. That number was likely even larger when you consider this patch was reposted to many other sites, and downloaded elsewhere too. A few rare bugs showed up from people having played, but nothing mind-shattering. October 29th was when a bunch of notes were posted, particularly on the decision to not rename the game to Earthbound 2 for the patch, and the etymology behind the main family. A few years later, on April 20th, 2013, the 7th anniversary of the original game's release, an offer was presented to Nintendo. They could use the fan translation for no royalties to publish Mother 3 into English officially for Western audiences, and while nothing ever came of this offer really showed that despite all the turmoil these fans felt about this little game not seeing an English release officially, they would always be there to pick up the slack that Nintendo of America would leave. And that is that. That's the history of the Mother 3 fan translation. Now that we've gone over the history of what led up to the translation patch, I think I should review the patch. I feel like that sounds kinda weird, but just as the original game is a piece of art, the fan translation itself is art too, and I think it's worth giving it at least some analysis for its creative decisions, for this video's sake. To start, I want to talk about the disclaimer screen that I brought up before during the history section. It's so interesting. For one thing, I think it's hilarious how the team implemented it in a way. Should someone try and hack it out of the game, it just breaks everything. That's awesome. But what's always intrigued me is this line: please support this series by buying official merchandise. Well, I've got that covered. It is strange to think that despite this immensely good faith recommendation of supporting the series financially, some people didn't see this as good enough of an excuse against piracy. But regardless, I think the way the fan translation is written is great. But before I get into the game's writing, I want to go over my thoughts on the technical side of the patch. It is absolutely phenomenal what they were able to accomplish in this game with such bad spaghetti code. And the bonus stuff they added really is a cherry on top, if nothing else. I seriously applaud the devs for adding back the unused memo screen to the game, accessible by holding the L and R buttons while accessing the status menu. Also changing the one Japanese voice line to be in English is pretty funny too.
Ready, let go!
It's also worth mentioning that the plethora of glitches the original game had that the fan translation team fixed is amazing. Seriously though, how did Nintendo not notice before the game came out that Duster's attack instrument was bugged and wouldn't change randomly each turn like it was intended to with every character? The fan translation team was able to fix this and more, and it was seriously cool of them. As I said before, the English translation is extremely high quality to the point where it does feel official, as in when I play the patch, it really doesn't feel like I'm playing a fan product. It does just feel as if I'm playing what Mother 3 would be like if it was officially available in English. And that is great. That is, in short, the best thing I can say about this fan project, and I absolutely applaud everyone involved in making the fan translation happen for being able to make something of such high caliber. Every little element, from putting in an entire optional hard mode which provides replayability, to adding into the game the same font that Earthbound uses, contributes to this. That all being said, I do want to bring up some of its weaker elements for the sake of analysis. One extremely important thing for the team was to try and preserve the original meaning of the original text. Shigesato Itoi's writing is that of legends, as the way the Mother games are written cannot be replicated by pretty much anyone, and I do think they did an amazing job of doing so. But Mado has gone on record in the time since the release of the patch, and said that he wasn't entirely satisfied with how he translated certain things. Two of the particular ones he regretted was the way Hinawa's letter to Flint was worded. It just didn't sound natural enough compared to the original text. As well as this, he was also dissatisfied with Kumatora's dialogue. He said that in the Japanese version, Kumatora is far more informal and crude with her dialect. He said just using apostrophes for some of the words she says really wasn't enough to convey this. Since this is indeed criticism from the man himself who translated this game's text, I can't help but agree with him that, yeah, in hindsight, those two things could have been translated better, but it is always worth remembering that translating and localizing is almost always going to vary from person to person and can never truly be perfect in a traditional sense. There are some creative decisions on how certain things were translated that I actually feel pretty agreeable on. For example, making Yokuba's name into Facade worked out for so many reasons, particularly that it is a clever pun. And as what I went over in my Magypsy analysis video, I think getting a gay man to help bring flair for the Magypsy's dialogue was the right decision ultimately. Still though, the text in the fan translation I think gets across the original intent of Mystery Toy in a way that feels natural and official, and I guess that's all you can really ask for. I think a sort of sad thing you need to accept oftentimes when it comes to translating Japanese media into other languages is that not every single pun or reference can be just translated directly into English with the same effect as the original text intends. The fan translation's effort to take lines that would otherwise not make sense to an English speaker and replace them with an equivalent that gives off similar energy, such as renaming Janaika Tea to Init Tea, is very much a statement towards the quality of this patch. Not just being an excellent translation, but an excellent localization too. Localizing and translating aren't exactly the same thing, but this patch put in the effort to do both of those things for Mother 3. Now that I've gone over my personal thoughts on the patch, what did everyone else think? Well, there was this one dude who wasn't happy how the patch contained swearing. Yeah, I'm serious. But besides that, it was an overwhelming positive reaction. The people could finally play Mother 3 in English, and that's all they had wanted. It's now been over 15 years since the release of the fan translation. In that time, it's received 3 update patches full of improvements. It's been shown off in countless video game magazines, among other accolades. But in the time since its release, the question does float around in my mind. Is it time for a retranslation? Do we need to see Mado take a crack at trying to get the English script closer to the original Japanese intent and rectify his grievances? In the time since the release of the fan translation, Mado has of course improved as a translator, as would anyone with a skill in the creative field. Even in the time between him joining the Mother fanbase and the release of the fan translation, you can tell he improved significantly. He went from accidentally mistranslating parts of an Earthbound 64 demo report in 1999, to being able to largely preserve the original meaning of Mystery Toy's text in the actual finished game itself, less than 10 years later. To answer my question though, I think a retranslation would be neat, but it's not something that I'm in a rush to see. It is a lot of work translating a whole game, and I think people with the skills of being able to properly translate Japanese are better off putting that time and effort into Mother series material that is yet to be translated at all. That being said, I don't really think Mado specifically needs to be the one who has to retranslate it. The man already translated the game once. He's already done more in service to this game than anyone could ever be obligated to. Plus, the man's busy doing stuff like working on officially localizing other Nintendo games, so he has no real reason to drop that in favour of more fan projects. Mother 3 is a beautiful game, a sentiment I've repeated in many of my videos, but I don't think I've done enough to truly express my gratitude towards the people who enabled me, as well as hundreds of thousands of others to get the opportunity to play and experience this game, and I hope this video can help serve as an expression of that gratefulness towards the Mother 3 fan translation. At the very least, I hope you learnt something you found neat. If you found what I spoke about to be interesting at all, I highly suggest you check the sources and links in the description for more info about the Mother 3 fan translation. There's a lot I couldn't cover in this one video that deserves to be read up on in your own time. If you enjoyed watching, please subscribe, and until the next time, bon voyage amigo.